Guten Morgen, Kameraden. Today we are going to be talking about the direct and indirect causes of the First World War. Now, getting started, everybody knows about the direct cause. On June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, now capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist known as Gavrilo Princip, who is also a member of the terrorist group known as the Black Hand. After this, Austria-Hungary sent an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia, of course, did not agree with these demands, and thus a war broke out, which eventually led to the First World War. Now, although the assassination was the direct cause of the war, there were many indirect causes that allowed it to expand to such a large-scale war, and which ultimately led to the death of 17 million people. Most people say there are four main indirect causes. Many people like to use the acronym MAIN to describe these. You have militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. All of these played a huge role in allowing the war to get so big so fast. Now, getting into the discussion about militarism, every European nation was rapidly expanding their military, especially after 1871 with the unification of the German Empire after the defeat of France in the Franco-Prussian War. Everybody was trying to outdo themselves, especially France, Germany, Britain, Russia, Austria-Hungary, Italy, of course all the main European nations. They all wanted to dominate Europe. They all wanted to show everybody else that they were the strongest nation, and this really heightened tensions immensely. Now, the second indirect cause, being alliances, really caused the war to get so big. And you have the Triple Alliance, which is signed between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, which was a defensive pact formally signed in 1882, even though Italy did in fact join the Allies in 1915. It was still an alliance not to be messed with, so in response to this, Russia and France formally created the Triple Entente along with Britain in 1894, which cemented two sides in Europe. Russia was also an extremely close ally to Serbia, which was another reason the war exploded so fast. Imperialism was another huge factor at play. All European nations wanted a piece of Africa, and with the Berlin Conference of 1884, which regulated European colonization and trade in Africa, everybody wanted more colonies in Africa than what they got in the Berlin Conference due to the regulations in the conference. Countries are only able to get a certain amount of land in Africa. It was almost like European powers were waiting to snag more land from other European powers, and luckily for them, World War I was a great excuse to do so. The fourth and final main indirect cause of the First World War was nationalism. Now, in the early 1900s, the late 1800s, almost every single European nation had extremely strong nationalistic ideas, which led to their populations deeming themselves superior to every single other population. The pride in their country was insurmountable. Everyone thought that their country was the best in terms of everything, which, when the war broke out, everyone assumed that the war would be over in a few weeks, or would be over by Christmas, as they would say, which of course they were horribly wrong, and 4 years later, only then did the war finally end. Exactly 1 month later, after the assassination of Franz Ferdinand by the Serb Gavrilo Princip, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914, after Serbia didn't accept 100% of their demands. Serbia appealed to Russia for help, and Russia began mobilizing on Austria's border. On August 1st, after hearing the news of Russia's mobilization, Germany went in to help her sister nation and declared war on Russia, thus bringing in France as well, due to their close allies. Germany used the Schlieffen Plan, which is to go through Belgium to attack France, and thus brought in Britain as well, due to close allies with Belgium. All of this came together to create a brutal and bloody 4-year-long war. It led to the deaths of 17 million people, left millions more mentally and physically scarred for the rest of their lives, and permanently affected history as we know it. Thank you to all the people who served their countries in the Great War, and lest we forget.